Does evidence stifle faith? Once you have reason to believe something, wouldn't that mean you can no longer practice faith to believe it blindly? Christian apologists often say no, because faith is not blind. Faith is trusting what you have believed to be true after looking at the evidence. So evidence is step 1, faith is step 2. Faith and evidence are not both competing for step 1. And while I find this is mostly true, I'll get to that later, I worry that most apologists are just saying this because it supports our case. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says we walk by faith, not by sight. Hebrews 11 says faith is the assurance and conviction of things we don't see. So, can we actually give a biblical case that faith is not blind? Let's take a closer look at 2 Corinthians 5:7. Here in chapter 5, Paul is contrasting our life on earth with our life yet to come in heaven. We see our life on earth, obviously. We don't see our life in heaven because it hasn't happened yet. However, we walk by faith, not by sight. In other words, we live our life with heaven in mind. That's why we can persevere in the trials and suffering we face on earth, and it's why we make it our aim to please God, looking forward to his reward on Judgment Day. We walk by faith, not by sight. We are future-minded. We are not swallowed up by our present struggles. That's what this verse is talking about. So I hope you can see for yourself that in 2 Corinthians 5:7, it's not saying faith is blind because we take it without evidence. It's saying that faith lacks sight because it looks forward to the promises of God yet to come. If we were transported into the future and we all experienced these promises fulfilled, that would take away faith. And that's fine. Faith is not meant to last through eternity. But if today I find reason and evidence to bring greater assurance in the future promises of God, that would only help to strengthen my faith. You turn to Hebrews 11 and you see the exact same thing. It says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." Once again, this is not saying that faith is believing without evidence. It's saying that faith is a forward-looking trust in God in a posture of obedience. Why can I say this? Because right after this definition of faith, there's a huge list of examples, and practically every example of faith is focused on the people's trust and obedience. It never says that they lacked reason or evidence in their acts of faith. In fact, you go back to the definition of faith here and study the original Greek word used for conviction, you'll find that it's strongly connected to the idea of reason and evidence. There's another video by a YouTuber named Matthew Tingled who dug into that word and walked through some of those examples in Hebrews 11. I'll pop the link in the description, but I hope you can see that faith really does have an element of blindness insofar as our future is yet to be seen. But that's very different than the modern idea of blind faith where you believe without reason. Evidence does not stifle faith, it supports faith. But I also want to be clear that the act of trusting in obedience we call faith is not something which just happens when you have enough evidence. Ephesians 2:8, faith is a gift from God. So faith comes from God, it's supported by evidence, it looks to the future promises of God secured for us in Christ, and it responds in obedience. That's faith. That's faith in a Christian context. Speaking of evidence, let me share what's coming up next week. Christians often talk about the evidence for Jesus based on what other people have said about him. People like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, and the other apostles. Many skeptics write this off as anecdotal evidence. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean it's true. Fair enough. But not all testimonies are the same. We'll talk about that. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.